In the year 1177, a mere 500 Christian knights confronted Saladin's formidable army of 26,000 soldiers. The odds seemed insurmountable, yet that day witnessed one of history's most astounding triumphs. In the arid expanse of the Holy Land, the breeze carried whispers of destiny amidst swirling dust. The banners adorned with the esteemed golden cross of Jerusalem fluttered not in celebration, but in sheer defiance. At the brink of peril stood the kingdom of Jerusalem, with its youthful sovereign, Baldwin IV, known as the Leper King, a frail 16-year-old plagued by a debilitating illness consuming his flesh. Despite his ailing form, a fierce resolve burned within him. Far to the south, a sweeping storm brewed as Sultan Saladin amassed a colossal force. His army, comprising Mamluk cavalry, Sudanese infantry, and Turkish archers, aimed decisively to vanquish Jerusalem and obliterate the Crusader realm forever. The news of the impending invasion raced through Jerusalem, seeding panic and doubt among the nobles. Calls for retreat echoed, but Baldwin, though gaunt and fragile, rose resolutely from his throne. His feeble yet resolute voice cut through the apprehension. A youthful emir chuckled gleefully as he peered northward, anticipating a swift victory over the Franks. "They will scatter before we even wield our swords," he boasted. Saladin, his expression subdued beneath his turban, countered, "Perhaps so. Yet even lions fight ferociously when cornered. We shall reduce their realm to ruins, ensuring they never rise again." The army surged forward with rapidity, traversing the Sinai, swiftly conquering Gaza and Ramla. Once impregnable fortresses that had withstood sieges surrendered without resistance to Saladin's advancing tide. Buoyed by these easy victories, the Sultan's confidence swelled, his sights set on the open city of Jerusalem. However, in his haste, he neglected critical siege engines, his supply train, and essential provisions, driven by the allure of what seemed like an effortless triumph. The unforgiving desert soon revealed a twist of fate as scouts relayed King Baldwin's retreat towards Jerusalem. Saladin decisively led his men towards the holy city, their voices harmonizing in chants of glory and paradise. Yet, as they neared Moncassard's desolate lands, an eerie stillness enveloped the air, replacing the rhythmic drumbeats with eerie whispers caressing the stones. On a distant rise, a glimmer caught the Mamluk's eye, prompting a furrowed brow and a shielded gaze. Before he could articulate his query, a thunderous call erupted from the hills, reverberating with the ominous sounds of horns. Suddenly, the ridges came alive as 500 armored knights, their lances steady, descended like an ominous tempest from the heavens itself. Leading the charge was Baldwin, his gleaming silver mask concealing his features, his banner of the Golden Cross waving proudly. It was the meeting of the impossible. The desert erupted in chaotic motion as sand billowed, horses neighed, and sunlight danced off their steel armor, with 500 valiant knights hurtling down the slopes towards an army 50 times their size. Positioned at the forefront rode Baldwin, known as the Leper King, hidden behind a silver mask, his fragile hands gripping the reins with a fervor as if life's very essence hinged on this single advance. Following closely behind thundered the Templars, the Hospitallers, and the remaining Knights of Jerusalem, their once pristine white mantles now marred by dust and sweat. "Deus vult," they bellowed, their voices resounding above the thunder of hooves, an unwavering declaration, God wills it. In the Muslim ranks, incredulity swiftly transformed into frantic fear. Saladin's disheveled front lines, caught off guard and scattered, momentarily faltered before pandemonium unleashed its wrath. Some among them speculated that demonic apparitions had descended upon the battlefield, while others believed the Franks had miraculously multiplied with divine intervention. Saladin, a mask of urgency, sharply pivoted in his saddle, issuing commands that were drowned out amidst the cacophony of combat. The initial impact struck like thunderous lances, shattering the Saracen front as horses crumpled into men, painting the earth crimson with the meeting of steel and flesh. Baldwin, transformed into a man possessed by fervor, surged forward. Though his afflictions had rendered him feeble, a surge of adrenaline consumed his frailty. Engaged in battle, he wielded his sword with a vigor that did not befit a dying monarch, but rather a living legend, cleaving through foes with relentless precision. Beside him rode Odo de Saint-Amand, the booming voice of the Templar Grandmaster urging a relentless assault. Strike deep, shatter their resolve. Attempting to regroup, the Muslim cavalry encircled the flanks, yet the knights, executing tight and merciless formations, swiftly wheeled around for another charge. Choking clouds of dust engulfed the battlefield, as the wails of men and beasts intertwined within the desert's vast expanse. Saladin's elite guards enveloped their sultan, striving to protect him from the relentless onslaught. "My lord, we must retreat," one voice cried out, urgency lacing the plea. Saladin's gaze smoldered with rage. "No," he growled, defiance seeping through his words. "I shall not flee before a mere handful of fading Franks." Yet even within his steadfast resolve, the Sultan couldn't ignore the truth unfolding before him. His forces, strung out and in disarray, were crumbling beneath the unwavering valor of a king marked by fate's cruel hand. The dunes of Montcalm morphed into a tempest of blades, heralding the dawn of the inconceivable. The battleground descended into chaos, the once disciplined ranks of Saladin's formidable host fracturing under the onslaught of fear. Arrows scattered indiscriminately claiming lives among comrades and adversaries alike. Startled camels stampeded in a frenzy, trampling indiscriminately in their blinded panic. Trumpets blared contradictory commands, banners vanishing into swirling veils of dust. Emerging from the heart of the maelstrom, Baldwin steadfastly pursued the offensive. Bloodstains etched his silver mask, his mount drenched in sweat. He appeared less man than a figure of legend, embodying death in the form of a monarch. Wherever he directed his gaze, his loyal knights mirrored his resolve, carving a path through adversaries numbering tenfold. Odo de Saint-Amand's directives reverberated over the clamor. "Close ranks, strike from the flanks, do not allow them respite." The Templars, dutiful to their grandmaster, assailed the Muslim flanks ceaselessly, their robust war horses dispersing the lighter cavalry like dry autumn leaves. Desperation gripped Saladin's commanders as they sought in vain to rally their troops. Amir al-Adil, the Sultan's own brother, strained his vocal cords to the point of bloodshed, issuing commands to anchor the wavering formation. Yet the surge halted, momentum dissipating. What initially seemed a confident stride towards triumph metamorphosed into a chilling nightmare, a tumultuous whirlwind of confusion and dread. Baldwin's resolute band delved further into the fray, armor dented, weapons glistening with gore. Encompassed, outnumbered, their charge never wavered. Amidst the turmoil, Saladin's esteemed golden standard faltered. Witnessing the pivotal moment, the Crusaders erupted in a fervent roar, propelling forth with renewed vigor. Saladin's retinue encircled him protectively as arrows whistled past, whisking the Sultan from the blood-drenched battleground. "My lord, you must live to fight another day," Aladil implored, gripping the reins with fervor. Saladin's eyes blazed with unwavering determination. "I shall return," he spat, before wheeling his steed and galloping southward, leaving the chaos behind. The commander's retreat shattered the remnants of resolve among the troops, casting a pall over the forces of Islam. Beset by the relentless pursuit of the Knights of Jerusalem, the Islamic host crumbled, eventually breaking and fleeing. By nightfall, the sands surrounding Mont Cador were littered with the bodies of 20,000 men. The surviving remnants, even Saladin himself, rode through the darkness, plagued by their own shadows of fear. Meanwhile, a trembling and blood-soaked Baldwin knelt beside his spent mount, whispering through parched lips, "Not by my hand, Lord, but by yours." The desert wind carried away his plea, a blend of prayer, confession, and the subtle yet significant turn of history. As night descended, an eerie blanket of silence enveloped the battlefield, punctuated only by the anguished cries of the dying and the restless murmur of horses. The moon ascended over a forlorn plain, adorned with the remnants of battle, shattered spears, fallen banners, and an unfathomable number of corpses. Where once the sands sparkled with a golden hue, they now lay darkened by the weight of blood spilled in conflict. Descended from his steed, Baldwin IV moved laboriously, his legs aching from the prolonged engagement. Despite the ravages of his illness eating away at his strength, he remained steadfast, surrounded by the dwindling band of his knights. Among the 500 warriors who had charged into the fray, only half remained, their armor bearing scars, their countenances etched with exhaustion. Yet, against all odds, they had achieved the impossible, dismantling Saladin's army, scattering, slaying, or routing 26,000 adversaries into the unforgiving desert. Approaching Baldwin, Giovanni of Ibelin, his voice strained, uttered, "Sire, we have emerged victorious. Against all logic, against every probability, we have triumphed." The young king peered towards the horizon, where fading embers still signified Saladin's retreat. Attempting to articulate his overwhelming emotions, Baldwin found himself seized by a wave of sentiment. Finally, in a hushed whisper, he confessed, "It was not our might, but the divine hand at work." With a steady hand, he removed his silver mask, unveiling the ravaged countenance of the Leper King, eyes sunken, skin pallid and fissured, yet radiating an unseen peace that resonated deeply with those who beheld him. Odo de Saint-Amand knelt before Baldwin IV, driving his sword into the blood-soaked earth. "Jerusalem endures because you did not yield," he proclaimed with reverence. "You transcend mere kingship, my lord. You are the instrument of God's will." Weakly, Baldwin shook his head. "No, brother, I am but his humble servant." In the distance, faint echoes hung in the air, Saladin's soldiers lost and perishing in the unforgiving desert, haunted by thirst and despair. The once indomitable Sultan had narrowly escaped with his life, his pride left in ruins. As dawn broke, shedding light on scenes rarely witnessed in battle, a living miracle unfolded. A boy king, afflicted by disease, had faced an empire and emerged victorious. For a brief spell, the kingdom of Jerusalem did not stand as a remnant, but as a luminous beacon amidst the unending sands. Morning arrived over Mont Cassard, casting a spectral hue. Smoke spiraled from smoldering tents and broken wagons, mingling with the stench of death. Iron crows soared overhead lazily, their cries blending with the post-slaughter silence. Baldwin IV stood atop a hillock, overlooking the battleground. His knights had raised the fallen enemy's banners, now tattered and trampled, as a symbol of victory. In a peculiar and poignant sight, the green standard of Islam fluttered alongside the crosses of Jerusalem, prompting even the triumphant crusaders to bow their heads. Approaching Baldwin, Giovanni of Ibelin, his armor scathed and face smeared with soot, relayed news. "Sire, Saladin has disappeared to the south. His forces scatter, some surrender, begging for respite." Baldwin's gaze remained fixed on the distant horizon as he quietly uttered, "Let them live. Enough souls have perished in this barren land." Though uncommon in conflicts of faith, none dared question such a decree. Amidst their discourse, returning messengers brought tidings of Saladin's captured supplies, gold, silk, and armaments aplenty, abandoned in their flight. Baldwin, preoccupied with deeper thoughts, barely registered their message. The youth who had led a battalion against an empire now bore the weight of time's toll. Despite his worsening malady and trembling hands, his eyes bright, serene, unyielding, arched with an otherworldly tranquility. Odo de Saint-Amand, dismounting to kneel once more, declared, "God has anointed you as his champion, sire. None shall question his favor upon you." With a faint smile, Baldwin remarked, "A champion, you say? No, my friend, I am but a witness to his divine grace. He enacted his will, I merely bore witness." That evening, the crusaders encamped near a diminutive rivulet. The wounded groaned, priests' hymns drifted through the air, mingling with hints of myrrh and smoke. Amidst the lull, whispers emerged of a radiant glow upon the horizon, not one of fire, but a purity almost divine. Far to the south, Saladin journeyed in solemn silence alongside his dwindling guard. His countenance was downcast, eyes obscured in shadow. A hushed query broke the silence as one of his emirs ventured, "My lord, how could this transpire? 500 against 26,000. Saladin remained silent for a prolonged moment before finally uttering, "The hand of their God weighs heavily, but the desert holds all memories. One day I shall return, and the Lion of Jerusalem shall not rise anew." As the sands murmured around them, his solemn vow drifted into the vast expanse of the night. The road leading to Jerusalem meandered through fields of dust and olive groves, bathed in golden hues under the setting sun. Progressing along this path were the remnants of the army, Montcalm's battered yet indomitable warriors. News of their improbable triumph spread like wildfire, drawing villagers from their homes to line the road, exulting in prayer and casting flowers before the passing steeds. For years, the residents of the sacred city had dwelled in dread, fearful of Saladin's legions, fearful of impending obliteration. Yet now, for the first time, their faces were lifted to the light. The inconceivable had manifested itself. Baldwin, the Leper King, had returned as the savior of Christendom. Approaching the city gates, a symphony of bells reverberated from every tower, cascading over the fortified walls like the rolling waves of the sea. Monks and nuns poured into the streets, bearing lit candles and revered icons, while barefoot children weaved through the throngs, heralding, "Long live Baldwin, long live the king." The youthful monarch advanced at a deliberate pace, his silver mask shimmering in the torchlight. Though his armor bore dents and his cloak was rent, to the populace he seemed as a mystical apparition, a celestial knight blessed by divine providence. At the threshold of the Holy Sepulchre, the Patriarch of Jerusalem awaited alongside his retinue of priests. Kneeling as Baldwin dismounted, tears glistening in his eyes, the Patriarch pronounced, "My son, the Lord has delivered his city through your hands." Baldwin demurred, his voice soft but firm, "Not through my hands, Father. Through his benevolence, let us give thanks." Within the church, the knights reverently laid down their swords before the altar, the resonant clash of steel upon stone echoing like thunder. As vows were reaffirmed, the choir's hymns ascended, harmonizing with the silent tears shed by soldiers who had borne witness to both abundant death and exquisite grace. Near the entrance, Odo di Sinamen observed his king kneeling before the relic of the true cross. "He should have perished in the battle," he murmured to Giovanni of Ibelin. Giovanni nodded pensively, replying, "Perhaps he did, and what rides forth now is something transcendent beyond mortal realms." The tolling of the bells persisted as voices intertwined in song. In a fleeting, brilliant moment, the kingdom of Jerusalem appeared everlasting, illuminated under the celestial canopy. That night in the palace, Baldwin sat solitary by a window, gazing upon the city he had safeguarded. Despite trembling with pain, a subtle grin graced his lips as he whispered, "As long as I draw breath, no adversary shall claim you." His words dispersed into the inky darkness, a pledge to his divinity, his subjects, and his waning realm. Winter arrived prematurely that particular year. Chilled winds from the Judean hills swept through the Jerusalem towers, enshrouding the king, once ablaze like a beacon, in perpetual frailty at each dawn. Baldwin Ivy's leprosy advanced unabated, his digits grew rigid, skin fissured and bled, vitality dwindling like a faltering flame. Still, the legend of Moncada blazed on. Devotees converged from all corners of Christendom to witness the sovereign youth who had defied Saladin's might. Historians immortalized him as the new David, the youth who felled the giant. Yet within the palace, the hero grappled with restless nights, not haunted by triumph but by its profound sacrifices. Giovanni of Ibelin ventured in one evening, discovering Baldwin in reverent contemplation before a crucifix. His battle-worn armor stood nearby, a testament to past glories at Montcazard. "Your body craves respite, my lord," Giovanni voiced tenderly. Baldwin offered a faint smile, his silver mask resting beside him on the table. "My flesh has never been obedient," he breathed softly, "but my spirit yet heeds the call." Raising his eyes to the crucifix, he remarked, "Christ bore his burden till the end. I, too, must endure mine." Giovanni lowered his gaze in reverence. "You bore a burden beyond measure," he acknowledged. Meeting Giovanni's gaze, Baldwin's eyes remained resolute, despite the fever simmering within. Montcazard was no mere victory of arms, he reflected. It was a revelation. God extended his grace to us briefly, demonstrating the power of faith. However, he will not eternally wage our wars. Should Saladin return, he may test our resolve instead. Beyond the walls, the sepulchre's bells tolled the passing hour. Unbeknownst to its inhabitants, the city slumbered, oblivious to the fading of its noble king into the annals of legend. Whispers wafted from the southern deserts borne by traders. Saladin forged anew, marshalling fresh legions. Though his vanity had been wounded, it remained unbroken. Baldwin sensed the crescent's forthcoming ascension, discerning it in the wind's tremor and the tranquility of his dreams. Gazing towards the distant hills, where the moon loomed above Jerusalem's ramparts, he murmured, "Let him approach. When he does, may he encounter men as resolute in valor as we were." The candle flickered as the boy who had brought an empire to heel bowed his head in supplication. Outside, the divine city rested beneath a precarious tranquility. As years elapsed, the desert invoked its healing balm, mending the scars of tumultuous times. But memories endured. In Cairo to the south, Saladin orchestrated a resurgence, forging alliances, training fresh legions, vowing to retaliate for the Moncasard debacle. Yet amid his ire simmered a profound reverence for the audacious young monarch who, armed solely with faith and valor, had bravely opposed him. When his commanders disparaged the Franks as feeble and waning, Saladin interceded sternly. "You speak of maladies," he reproved coldly, "yet that lad shamed me before God and men. Pray that, when your hour comes, you meet death as resolutely as he did." Unyielding and shadowed by affliction, Baldwin held his dominion from his throne. Though his frame neared ruin, his mettle remained undiminished. Equestrian travel was beyond him, and wielding a blade a distant memory, yet ensconced in his regal seat, he wielded the realm with unwavering acumen. Those once skeptical nobles now heeded in silence. Acting on his directives, Giovanni of Ibelin and Odo de Saint-Amand fortified the frontiers. Nevertheless, the sovereign comprehended the verity. The tranquility he had secured was delicate, akin to a line traced in sand against the encroaching tide. On a fateful night, a messenger staggered from the desert, near death, a harrowing omen on the horizon. "The Sultan is stirring once more," he gasped. "The tribal forces align. The standards of Damascus and Cairo march in unison." The court fell into hushed contemplation. Dismissive of his counsel, save for his closest confidants, King Baldwin intoned softly, "He will advance upon us, yet he shall encounter us alert, unyielding." His gaze alighted upon a tapestry portraying the skirmish of Magincarde, knights charging through billowing dust, a figure clad in silver at their helm. Trembling, he touched the fabric, remembering. "Once," he murmured, "God granted me the vigor of 10,000 men. I shall not seek that again, only the fortitude to confront what destiny bequeaths beneath the crescent moon, a land teeming with Saladin's banners." Two rulers, one enfeebled, the other resolute, gazed skyward at the same astral vault poised for the impending climax. Amidst them lay the serenity of the Holy Land, awaiting the thunderous advent of fate. The year, 1185. Jerusalem's realm existed in an uneasy calm. Defended by fortresses, its throne veiled in quietude. King Baldwin IV, the Leper King, lingered on the cusp of oblivion. The affliction consuming his flesh now encroached upon his heart. In the royal chambers, sunlight filtered through stained glass upon his mattress. Once luminous eyes, now dim. Resolute hands, now skeletal. Giovanni of Ibelin kept vigil, wordless. The clergy had concluded their rites, sacraments administered. Unafraid, Baldwin gazed towards the window, where beyond the city ramparts, the Mount of Olives rose, bathed in the sun's golden embrace. "Giovanni," he whispered, "do you perceive it?" "Hear what, my lord?" Giovanni inquired. "The wind," Baldwin responded. "That very wind from Moncasard." A wistful smile graced his lips. "It yet carries the hoofbeats." Giovanni bowed solemnly. "The knights recall, sire. All of Christendom recollects." Baldwin's respiration ebbed, shallow and unhurried. "Convey this," he urged. "Not our swords prevailed, but our faith. I was no champion, merely an observer. May they maintain belief, even amid scarcity, even amid death. For God espouses strength in the vulnerable." As the tolling of the Holy Sepulchre bells permeated the ambience, their reverberation mingled with the desert zephyr's susurration. Baldwin shut his eyes. "The Lord is my stalwart," he faintly articulated, "and my shield." As the chiming subsided, the lad king who had withstood an empire had departed. For 40 days the city grieved, from the humblest pilgrim to the proudest noble, lining the avenues as his casket passed. Not as a leper, not as a ruler, but as the Lion of Jerusalem, far distant within Damascus. Upon receiving tidings, Saladin stood in contemplation. Attendees awaited his jubilant declaration, yet the Sultan simply inclined his head. "May God show him clemency," he conveyed. "He was a sovereign." Thus, two formidable foes found themselves bound by a shared desert wind, one by existence's edge, the other by recollection. Years hence, when Saladin at long last reclaimed Jerusalem, chroniclers whispered of a bloodless conquest, asserting mercy reigned that day. Perhaps they alluded to the spirit of the leopard monarch still lingering amidst its walls, vigilant over victor and vanquished alike. Courage does not wane with empires, and once ignited, faith endures perpetually,